program today, we are going to be looking at the state of malnutrition in Nigeria. Of course, what are the issues? What matters are arising in this aspect? You know what it is when we talk about underweight, stunting, and wasting. What are all those? Where is Nigeria as far as malnutrition is concerned as we speak? To do this, I have with me a consultant enterologist who is also the chairman, board of trustees of the CSON, Dr. Mbang Kufre Ada. Very good day and welcome.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
So, tell us about the state of malnutrition in Nigeria.
The state of malnutrition in Nigeria is quite dire, if you ask me. Our figures are not encouraging. In fact, some figures actually report Nigeria is second to India as having the highest rates of undernourished or malnourished children under the age of 5. And I don't think that is a title that we should hold as a giant of Africa, if you ask me. Those figures, if you look at them, holistically, it would suggest that we're dealing with a large number of young, upcoming individuals or citizens of the country who are disadvantaged already, because we already know that one of the major negative impacts of malnutrition is that it causes stunting, not just in growth, but also as regards mental function. And at times I wonder, could some of the issues we're facing in the country have to do with issues that have to do with malnutrition that impacted some of us, and then you're now seeing when it comes to cognition now, trying to use your brain for critical thinking, we seem to fall short in some areas. So I'm just trying to, look at the impact.
Could it be what some of us are suffering?
Could it be? I don't know. So of course, if you look at it from that angle, of course, that is a negative impact. And of course, we're talking about death. We're talking about children who are born, who have the potential to die and not achieve their lifetime on earth, as it were, as a consequence of malnutrition. So yes, we have a major issue in this country. We still have a lot to do. I wouldn't want us to be known as the giant of Africa as a consequence of malnutrition. We should be the giant of Africa as regards positive things, not negative.
So, but let's look at the major cause of malnutrition in Nigeria. What are they? Well,
one of the things my alliance is very passionate about is ensuring food security. It is obvious that we are facing a lot of food insecurity in this country. We can already see the impact of climate change and how it impacts on farming processes. So we're talking about maybe longer duration of rainfalls, deforestation. We're talking about high temperature as a consequence of climate change, and you can see the impact on climate change as regards harvesting or production of goods and of food, nourishing food that should get to the end user. In instances where we now have these food meals or food items being harvested, as it were, do they get to us? We're now talking about people, high cost of transportation, insecurity from banditry, and of course we have the issues with the herders and the farmers' crisis, ongoing. These are all things that impact when you look at that food chain from the farm to the end user. Does it get to us? And then probably the food does get to us. Do we have the knowledge basis on how to even prepare a nutritious meal? So I'm giving you the various, as I would say, pillars or, structures that need to be in place for us to be nutritious or have a nutritious meal or have a nourishing meal. We need to tackle them in these aspects. and in doing so we'll be able to overcome the challenges that we are facing right now as regards food insecurity or food security, as it were, in the country.
So what about combination of this food? Sometime, you know, when you have capacity built by UNICEF and you are told malnutrition does not only reside with those that are in the lower ladder, but even those that are in highbrow areas.
Exactly.
And they have what it takes to actually eat whatever they want to eat. To most time, or let me not use most time, sometimes some of them are malnourished. Well, maybe this time they're obese.
Exactly.
And then they say,
I was about to say,
they're malnourished.
Yes.
So, what really can be done to actually create awareness on the right combination of this food, since it is not only limited to those that are in the lower.
Oh, definitely.
So what can be
so
done?
We're here in ITV. So this is some level of advocacy where we now try to, you know, share knowledge and information. And I know my alliance CSON has been doing a lot as regards advocacy, media campaigns, trying to empower relevant stakeholders. I've actually been for a media parley with where journalists were gathered like in a roundtable format in Cross River State, and CSON was involved in transferring some level of knowledge to journalists, and this was to help them know how to scale down whatever information that they have to at the level of the grassroots or wherever they are delivering whatever news or media, whatever form of, however they present their media to the public. So the whole essence of that exercise was just to build some level of capacity. So for me, you know, one of the things we can do as regards overcoming or tackling malnutrition is knowledge, building knowledge of mothers. You know, don't forget that when you empower a woman, you're literally empowering a village. And good enough, we were in the launch of the national guidelines for women and girls as regards building nutrition in the country. So the whole essence of an activity like that is that when you empower a woman or a young girl, you're literally empowering a community. You know, women are very interactive. By the time I've actually shared recipes with friends, and I've learned other recipes with friends, just sitting in a gathering. Oh, did you put carrots in the rice? Oh, I didn't know I could put carrots in this. And then in doing so, I've been able to improve the nourishment, not just for myself, but for my household. So when you share knowledge amongst women, for one, and young girls, don't forget that these are people who play a significant role in the kitchen. So that would be a first way to go. And then of course, I know that we are making a lot of effort as regards exclusive breastfeeding for young mothers, because that is the fundamental. If you don't get that right, all this is we're not going anywhere, because we need to emphasize on exclusive breastfeeding and all what it takes to ensure that that first 1 year of an infant's life, they are nourished appropriately, exclusively with breast milk. So these are all activities that, you know, we can do to empower. And then of course you made then of course some women, when you now talk about the upper class, of course obesity is an issue. So of course we already know that there are conditions that have been linked to obesity. So as a gastroenterologist, we're seeing more cases of fatty liver, which can actually evolve to cirrhosis and cancer. So already that's the fatty liver as a consequence of obesity can become a very big issue. And of course there are high risk of stroke, high risk for cardiovascular events like heart attack. So of course we already know the negative impact of obesity. And then even when you look at the upper class, I've actually encountered a young mother whose husband seems to be quite educated, whose husband seems to do quite very well. But she was just feeding her children pap, pap, pap. And I'm like, no, at this particular age, you're supposed to be introducing meals, cheap meals like maybe sweet potatoes, boiled egg, a little palm oil, some sprinkling of crayfish powder, and you've made a nourishing meal for the child without having to break the bank. But so she seems surprised. She felt that, oh, the pap with some milk, a few spoons of milk was sufficient for a 2-year-old. And I'm like, no, now you need to do a bit more, because I felt the child didn't really look, you know, just face value. Didn't look
healthy.
You can imagine, and she's living in the city. So there's still a lot to do. You can see that when you are looking from even from the low income earning people all the way to the high income earners, we still have a lot to do. Interactions, you know, knowledge is not one-off. You have to continue to drive home whatever information until it is deeply entrenched, you know, as a way of life or culture, as it were. So we will never get tired of advocacy until everybody gets it right.
Yeah, but for the exclusive breastfeeding, so much has been said, but it appears it's difficult for mothers, especially young mothers, to, you know, understand the importance and actually how to place their children, you know, on exclusive breastfeeding. Can you just shed
So
some
for
light
me,
on that?
I feel that's why it's important to, if you're pregnant, attend antenatal clinics. Antenatal is the way to go, because when you go, there's a lot of those nurses, doctors, and health workers have been trained already on how, in fact, CSON has been involved in activities like that, training those kind of health personnel, you know, on how to train young mothers as regards exclusive breastfeeding. So if you're sitting at home, you're doing the wrong thing. You're pregnant, you've missed your menses, and you're thinking you can stay at home, you're losing out, because that lady who goes to the nearest health center and enrolls into the ANC, we're checking her blood levels, we're educating her, she's going through the motions, we're keeping her and the baby healthy till term. You can imagine what that lady is. So for me personally, enroll into the ANC. And then when you get there, I feel that the phone has become a tool, well, positive and negative, in the sense that there's a lot of fake news, falsehood out there, if I would say. I'm sure I know CSON has if you go to the social media platform, there's a lot of material on our page where young mothers can access information, you know, that is evidence-based on how they should adopt certain practices. Because I can assure you, if you check CSON, you're sure of evidence-based data or information. But they'll rather go to another source where they'll tell you, if you give them some water, you know, you hear all kinds of things, and these are the children that come down with diarrheal infections.
It doesn't matter, you can mix both the breast milk and some
you
water.
You hear things like that. And if you I've actually sat through some ANC interactions, even as a young mother then, and they'll tell you the percentage of water in breast milk. For instance, breast milk is almost 90%, if I'm correct, not water.
Water.
Yes, and then of course a lot of relevant nutrients are inside the milk, as it were. So it's just for us to know that, you know, I just think that first and foremost we need to change. It's like a cultural, behavioral kind of change that people need to adopt. First and foremost, where are you getting your information from? Keep it simple, keep it credible. And then for the young mothers, I think they should tone down on, you know, where they assess their information, and go and take time to ask the questions at the right at the right sources, as it were. So I think that would just be my point on that.
Okay, so malnutrition comes with some, you know, impact.
Yes.
You know, time may not permit us to go into that, but I'd like you to talk about the negative impact of stunting and wasting.
So I'm no pediatrician, so this is a public disclaimer. I am an adult physician. However, I do know that malnutrition can impact negatively. First, so if you have a malnourished mother, that child, before even being born, is already disadvantaged.
Wow.
So we're looking at maybe this mother having...
So it's transferable?
Yes, definitely. You're going to have a baby that is small for weight. And you know, and then these are mothers that are prone to preterm delivery. And you know, if you have a preterm baby, there's a lot of challenges there. So first of all, if you talk about even the woman that is malnourished, problem. And then
big one.
Then you now get to the children, for instance, who now arrive into this our glorious world and are faced with malnutrition as one of their major health crises. These are children, if lucky, may not live to see their 5th birthday, because these are children that are prone to diarrheal infections. Diarrheal infections can be ravaging. These are children that are not just prone to diarrheal infections, they are prone to other infections. Why? Because their immunity is not optimal. Don't forget that when you eat a lot of some of these nutrients in our meals, it boosts our immunity. So these are children that are already born first of all, they are probably born disadvantaged, and then they are already in this disadvantaged environment where they are not having adequate nutrition. So they are already at risk for early deaths. They are at risk for ravaging infections. And then if they are able to maybe just cross that 5th year in life, probably they are going to be stunted in growth. And I've actually had one of our nutrition champions talk about the potential of, if this child was supposed to be a future pilot, is it possible that because he maybe was supposed to have been 6 foot, but because of his height, maybe the stunted growth he encountered, maybe he had a height disadvantage and that didn't enable him get onto that job. Or maybe let's say he probably wouldn't end up playing basketball.
Yeah.
He probably, you understand. So already that puts
how can he dunk?
Oh, exactly. Well, that's such a short height. So that's already stunted growth. And of course, this comes with other developmental issues. Cognition. I'm particular about the brain. The brain of a child is constantly going through all manner of growth and development up until 18 years. So you can imagine this child being thoroughly disadvantaged through a great aspect of his life. What happens to the brain of that child? These are the children probably who may not be able to carry out, critical thinking, strategic thinking. These are could we have had potential Albert Einsteins that we've lost in a generation because of poor feeding? This is where at times I ponder.
So generally we have fake productivity.
In fact, in the long term, we're looking at the productivity at the end of the day, because that appears to be a wasted generation. What are the next generation of Nigerians, when we have this second place position, as I've said, how is it going to impact our productivity? And economically speaking, that's not good enough.
Is there any remedy for them, these stunted and wasted kids?
So of course we have there are medical interventions that are available that can help correct situations of malnutrition, and there are all manner of WHO and other, even CSN has some manner of packages that can be given to mothers whose children have some level of malnutrition. But you see, we must take a note that when a child has been identified as being malnourished or stunted, because this is actually a medical diagnosis, that would, just like I've said, is a medical diagnosis. That means the intervention may have to be done in the jurisdiction of medical personnel who understand how to correct this scenario. So we would encourage a mother or anyone who knows a child who is malnourished not to do it in isolation at home, but it would be nice that if you could go to the nearest health care provider and get guidance on how this particular scenario can be corrected. Of course, there is room for correction, but the whole idea is that we should correct on time before permanent damage is done. We've talked about height, we've talked about the brain and cognition. Yeah.
In all of this, we believe that it boils down to availability of resources, and government has a huge role to play in this.
Yeah.
Can you tell us some of the roles that government can play
to tackle
malnutrition?
So first and foremost, I felt a bit discouraged when Nigeria was categorized as a nation that is experiencing multi-dimensional poverty.
103 million.
And that is a lot. Multidimensional is, in fact, I found it so discouraging. And For us to tackle multi-dimensional poverty, the government has to adopt a multi-dimensional approach. We're going to be looking at a multi-sectorial kind of approach, and this is the role that CSON has strongly had to play over the years, where we engage the relevant stakeholders in the various ministries, departments and agencies, of course alongside with our various partners. We're looking at interventions probably through the Ministry of Agriculture, Education, where I've talked about advocacy. Don't forget agriculture when we talked about securing food, so food security. Then of course even in the health sector, how do we tackle malnutrition can be a medical diagnosis or is a medical diagnosis, so we need to get the relevant stakeholders there on board on how they can intervene. So if you ask me, if we find ourselves in a situation of multi-dimensional poverty, the government should actually tackle it in a multi-dimensional way. That would be multi-sectorial approach, where you now capture all the relevant stakeholders. Today we were at the launch with the Ministry of Women Affairs. I think fantastic. Those people, in fact, literally those are the gatekeepers of anything that has to do with nutrition intervention in the country, because once you can assess the women, you have assessed the community, as it were. So that would be my humble advice to the government. They need to do more where it comes to planning, where it comes to release of funds, where it comes to various relevant ministries. The multi-dimensional approach or multi-sectoral approach to tackle this problem.
Yeah, we know that for those that are severely malnourished, some severely acutely malnourished, what they need is the RUTF, the Rate Therapeutic Food. But we don't produce it in this country. Doc, what can be done? Can government step into this?
Oh, definitely.
Can the budget line be created? Yeah, because in the Northeast, the last time we checked, about 2.5 million children are severely malnourished. What can we do?
So we're still saying the same thing. So for instance, specifically, for us, we need, first and foremost, we need to do, that we must be able to first of all understand where we want to key in. Don't forget, everybody has a role to play. So some people may want to stick to advocacy, and don't forget, advocacy is very important here. If we don't talk, nobody's going to listen, and we're not going to transfer knowledge. So advocacy. Now we'll get to the realm of legislators. So you would advocate to the legislators, rule out the evidence-based data to them, let them know there's a problem. You ruled out some data. Let them understand the issues on ground, so that the next budget cycle, they will put down money for interventions, which you've mentioned, because there's only so much we can do as a CSO or an individual or whatever organization. There's only so much we can do. We need to continue to advocate and engage the people that can make the change. So I would, in my own way, be particular about advocacy, reorienting our way of thinking, behavioral approach, and not just to me and you on the streets, but going straight thereafter. We need to engage the people who hold the pen, sign the documents. These are the policy makers. Put the numbers down, show them a PowerPoint presentation, let them see the numbers and the pictures, not pictures picked on the internet. What is currently going on in maybe Niger State or Zamfara or wherever. Reality. Or if you can even literally carry them to the field and they see.
Which is also possible.
And then they see the reality on ground, and then come back to with National Assembly or wherever and sign a document. So in doing so, I think half of our problem is solved. The rest is production and any other intervention can be done fantastically once there's release of funds. Paucity of funds has always been an issue. And then once there's release of funds, we now need to make sure that when the funds are released, is it being used for the purpose that it was meant for? Yes, judiciously. So that's where monitoring and evaluation come in, and this is also another critical role CSM plays a role in. So there's so much, there are times you have to look at it strategically, in the sense that we want to make enough impact, so that it is not just to go and distribute things. We need to make it sustainable for our people, so that we are looking for the next generation of Einsteins from Nigeria.
We hope that it will be possible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your time with us on the program. Time is not our friend.
Thank you
so
so
much to talk about, but there's honestly limited time. Thank you. It has been with consultant enterologist. That aspect is
strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Dr. Mbang Kufri Ada.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So this is the much we have, and I must say thank you for spending your time with us on the program. Join us next week, same time, same station, for another interesting